Welcome to Fearless Finances, where I'm trying to take the fear out of your finances. It turns out that according to multiple news sources, that a crazy man, yes, you heard me right, a crazy man just took over Washington, D.C. and actually plans to take over other cities. Now, of course, many are saying that this is due to his totalitarian aspirations, which we all know he has those. But this potentially runs deeper than that. Let me give you the actual scientific facts behind a crazy person taking over our federal streets. Well, he wants to take over a lot of our streets. And should we really be letting a crazy person be in charge of our military? I'll meet you on the other side. These two gentlemen in this video are renowned psychologists. I'll let them introduce themselves and their background in the video clip. But for a long time, they've been talking about the fact that Trump is not mentally capable of running the government. Now, chances are, without all the degrees, me and you and a whole bunch of other people, millions indeed, in fact, I almost want to say billions, because the world can see how crazy he is too. There's only about 70 million people in the United States who don't see it, in my opinion. Anyway, back to these two gentlemen. They've been talking about how Trump is not cognitively capable of running the United States for quite some time. However, recently, some of the people on the right have started to comment the same. They're starting to see it too. So I thought we'd watch a little bit of this and talk about what they have to say and the op-ed from the person on the right and examine their thoughts a little bit too.
I'm Dr. John Gartner.
And I'm Dr. Harry Siegel.
And welcome to this preview of Shrinking Trump.
On this week's show, we take a look at how the media has actually begun to focus on Trump's mental health or lack thereof. In particular, they're focusing on some of the major strange things that Trump has said and done in the past week.
Right. The word of the week is confabulation. That demented patients tell stories that didn't happen, not because they're lying, they're remembering things that didn't happen, that their mind is creating. And Donald Trump is starting to show signs of confabulation.
It's as if the media forgot about it. And now it's like, hey, there's a psychologist. He's a top psychologist. And he's pointing out, and then there's that guy Gartner, who's even more of a top psychologist. And they're saying he's got dementia. Well, we've been saying it for 2 years.
I just want to pop in here for a second and talk a little bit about why they're probably all talking about why Trump is crazy now. His economy sucks. You see, all these people were willing to put aside all their morals, put aside the fact that, I don't know, they claim not to be racist, they actually care about people. They put aside all of that. Oh, that they care about the law and our democracy. And they put into the White House a gentleman who tried to foment an insurrection and is clearly after Black and brown people. Oh, and ladies, us too. But they were willing to put all of that aside because they thought he'd build them a good economy. But now he's not. And now they're willing to look at all these other things that they chose to ignore. But let's hear what more they have to say.
And now they're starting to remember, now that he's even more dangerous and has a full grasp on power.
Right. I mean, we have to fight and fight and fight to get that story into the mainstream media when it would have made a difference before the election. But you've pointed out that once he was elected, they just erased all that. It's like we're starting from square one. And now because we've desensitized like the boiling frog to his cognitive disability, we're just kind of rolling with it. You know, it's sort of like the emperor's new clothes, except in the emperor's new clothes, one child says he's naked and then was, oh, I thought it was just me. But here we keep saying it, and people keep acting as if they're not seeing it.
Honestly, as trained psychologists, I almost wish they'd taken a moment to talk about why people are suffering so much from Trump Delusion Syndrome. I know they like to say that TDS is Trump Derangement Syndrome, but all of us that are pissed off, sick of this, and want to change are not deranged. We're living in reality, and our reaction to the toxicity that's going on is completely normal. What is not normal is the typical Trump supporters' ability to create delusional realities that allow them to continue to support a narcissistic criminal for our president, one that happens to be dismantling the things that are good for the American people and putting into place a terrorizing military zone. To not look at this, to not actually see what's right before your eyes. In fact, all of these Trump voters had to look past the insurrection and vote for him. We all saw it. We all saw it. We all know he lied repeatedly about the election. We all know this. Well, I shouldn't say we all know this. Some people believe that I just don't even want to get into those some people. The vast majority of us know that he lied about the election and fomented an insurrection. And yet they live in a delusional world that somehow allowed them to put this person into the White House. And they continue to TDS, Trump Delusion Syndrome, and not look at all of the things happening around us right now that are not healthy for our democracy, our economy, our people, and the world. And until they snap out of their TDS, we're all going to suffer. So, I love these guys. They're a little corny. They are a little corny. But I do wish they would have spent some time explaining to us how in the world someone can lose so much of their common sense to take on a lie instead. But let's check in about these other resources that they're talking about that are now supporting their efforts.
But here's the thing that was really, in my mind, a bigger breakthrough, because this is an important American publication called The Hill. And actually, this author is actually a Republican writing about Trump's cognitive decline. Trump's mental decline is undeniable. So what now? By Chris Truax.
What Trump is doing now is something different. Confabulation is sometimes called honest lying because the person doing it genuinely believes what he's saying, even if it is obviously and patently false. A person confabulates when they're telling completely invented stories that don't provide them any particular tangible benefit. In other words, it's not like lying to try to get out of a speeding ticket.
One thing that I think is important to understand is this person is on the conservative side. And in this op-ed, will admit that he's a triple Trumper, that he literally voted for Donald Trump 3 times. This means that he witnessed the insurrection. He knows that Trump lied about the election. This is why he's talking about getting out of the speeding ticket, right? Because he knows there was a reason for Trump to lie about that. He put this man, well, let me correct that. He helped put this man in office, put all of us in harm's way, and knows that he's a liar. But now he can tell he's confabulating. Let's learn more about that.
Confabulation isn't misremembering a date or forgetting something. The mistakes of memory we are all subject to become confabulation when people remember false information in vivid detail. Details so vivid and complete that people who don't know otherwise often believe what they are hearing is true.
In older people, confabulation is one of the clearest early signs of dementia. The day you witness someone confabulate is often the day you are forced to admit to yourself that a beloved parent needs help and that all the little slips and oddities you've been seeing can no longer be rationalized away.
Right now, listening to this whole confabulation stuff, I'm sitting there thinking about when Donald Trump claimed he was on a helicopter with, I don't know, was it the mayor of LA at the time? I don't know. It was some contrived story that he got it all wrong. And there was no like crash going to happen and all of that. Seems to me that was confabulation. In fact, I just looked up a news clip that talks about it. Let's take a peek at that.
During an at times meandering press conference Thursday, amid a flurry of falsehoods.
Okay, what's new? Meandering and full of falsehoods? Isn't that just a typical day for Donald J? What the hey? I'm feeling a little Seussish. Well, I meant Dr. Seuss, not like sushi, but it is sush-ish, I guess. Anyway, let's watch this through and see what we learn.
January 6th.
A remarkable story from Donald Trump about a near-death experience. It's under new scrutiny tonight. The former president referring to former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown, who dated Vice President Kamala Harris in the 90s.
Well, I know Willie Brown very well. In fact, I went down in a helicopter with him. We thought maybe this is the end. There was an emergency landing. This was not a pleasant landing. And Willie was, he was a little concerned. But he told me terrible things about her.
We spoke with Willie Brown by phone today.
I'm no expert, but doesn't that sound like confabulation to you? Let's find out the facts from what our lovely reporters were able to determine, especially when Willie Brown came forward and gave his whole version, or lack of there is a version of this story. OMG.
To be clear, you have never been on a helicopter with Donald Trump.
No, I have not. Are you kidding me?
Have you ever had any conversation with Donald Trump about Kamala Harris?
Of course not.
His initial reaction to Trump's comments?
I laughed. I just assumed that you're on a helicopter with somebody black and
It appears Trump may have confused Willie Brown with former California Governor Jerry Brown, whose spokesperson says did ride in a helicopter with Trump during wildfires in 2018, but adds there was no emergency landing and no discussion of Kamala Harris. Also in that helicopter, then Governor-elect Gavin Newsom. His spokesperson also says there was no emergency landing. Today, the Trump campaign was asked about the pushback to the former president's claim.
I would just defer you to President Trump's statement and what he said yesterday. The president has a lot of amazing stories from his life.
I didn't even realize that BS Barbie was around before he was even elected. OMG. But I don't know about you, but there's so many layers of confabulation in that story that I think any rational person would have known what was going on long ago. Anyone who didn't suffer from TDS, Trump Delusion Syndrome. But let's get back to our op-ed writer and find out more about what this triple Trumper had to say.
For Trump, the day we could no longer pretend everything is fine came on July 15th when he told a lengthy story about his uncle, John Trump, who he claimed taught at MIT and had 3 degrees in, quote, nuclear, chemical, and math. His uncle, according to Trump, once told him how he had taught Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, and how very smart Kaczynski was. Trump's uncle was indeed a professor at MIT. But everything else in this story is pure confabulation. Trump's uncle did not have degrees in, quote, nuclear, chemical, and math. He had degrees in electrical engineering and physics. And Kaczynski didn't go to MIT at all. He went to Harvard.
But most telling of all, it's categorically impossible for Trump's uncle to have told him any such story. Kaczynski became publicly known as the Unabomber when he was arrested in 1996. Trump's uncle, the MIT professor, died in 1985. In other words, Trump's uncle could not have told him the story because there was literally no story to tell during his lifetime. Once you've seen that Donald Trump is confabulating, it cannot be unseen, and all sorts of other mildly disturbing incidents suddenly fall into place.
As you can see, the op-ed goes on to talk about how if you're not comfortable calling this dementia and all this stuff, I'll post the whole thing down in the doobly-doo, so you may review it too. But here's the thing. I even just gave you another example of Trump confabulating months ago. Literally months ago. And now we have this dude calling out the National Guard, trying to negotiate trade deals, taking over Gaza and making it a beachfront and Greenland and crazy town. So many levels of crazy town. And this is what I find heartbreaking about it. Trump Delusion Syndrome still hasn't caught up with all of the Trump supporters. Now, I did a little bit of research on the author of this op-ed. Of course, I wanted to see the man's face first. I don't know. Just something about it made him a little bit more personal, actually personified him a little bit to me. And so we see some pictures of him here. And then we've got this Society for the Rule of Law. Interesting. So I did a little bit more research. And here we can see the op-ed that we were just talking about. Right there at the top, Trump's mental decline is undeniable. Now what? But then look what's below it. The government does have an Epstein list. Here's the proof. I'll put that in the doobly-doo for you too. And then we've got some links to that Society of the Rule of Law. Now, I really thought when I did some research on this whole Society for the Rule of Law, I would actually find some information about how this gentleman, Chris Truax, actually was a proponent of the rule of law and as a result opposed Donald J. on a number of things. But I should have known better because, again, that op-ed tells us that Chris Truax is a triple trumper. I mean, after all, when I sat here before, it says it right there.
And we all know, even those of us who voted for Trump 3 times, that this cannot be allowed to continue.
What in the holy hell? This man has been delusional all along. So when I saw that Chris Truax actually had some involvement with the Society of the Rule of Law, I had some hope that maybe, just maybe, there was a core of moral fiber. And then he also did this op-ed that went in the Hill about Chris Krebs. Now, if you're not familiar with Chris, he was fired by Donald J. when he had the audacity to say that the 2020 election was one of the most secure ever. And that's why 53 courts agreed that every single one of Trump's case should be thrown out. But during this administration, since Trump is our retribution, he's really his own retribution, he signed an executive order, Trump did, to have his DOJ go after Chris Krebs. Aren't you just so glad our tax dollars are used for such important things? And that our president is right on top of everything that will help make your life better. So I had a moment of glorious hope that maybe Chris Truax was going to be helpful to us. But what this op-ed basically says is, gosh darn it, Trump, what are you doing? You're giving the Democrats an in about why maybe a sitting president should not be directing the DOJ to do something like this. So this is the thing. Well, I'm super glad people on the right are starting to speak out. And I hope people on the right read these articles and maybe start to get a glimmer of hope. I don't think this man would be saying much of any of this if he didn't foreshadow that Trump's economy was going to suck. He doesn't care about people. He doesn't care about the rule of law. He just cares about what he thinks will help his wallet, which even in that, he was gravely deceived. Donald J. doesn't know how to help anyone in an economy. Like a billion things that prove he doesn't know what he's doing. He's a completely inept idiot. But again, that just brings us back to TDS, Trump Delusion Syndrome. Thanks for tuning in. If you found anything interesting in this content, I encourage you to subscribe. I'd love to see you back here again. And I am almost monetized. So if you can help me out, I would appreciate it. But please only subscribe if this sort of content is of interest to you. If you can think of another instance of Trump confabulating, please share it below. I think there's always so much going on with Trump that I forget some of the good stuff. And if you'd like this video, it'll surely get out to others. In the meantime, I've got some other content right here that might be of interest to you. And that means I'll see you soon.